So I'm you know, what am I? 11 years younger than Tom. So let's say I'm 6 years old, 7 years old. So we get up there and we're playing Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, and they've got an axe and we're throwing it to see if we can make it split in the middle of a tree. And it's fun. And they go, if Mr. Indeck finds out about this, we're going to get fired and be in so much trouble. This is just going to be the worst thing in the world if Mr. Indeck finds out about it. You can't tell anyone. Well, I'm 6 years old. I go home and my mom's taught me you can't lie and don't do anything wrong. So I'm crying that night, prayer night, and I'm Mom, is there anything you want to tell about any sins that you might have done? Yes, we went to Mr. Index and we threw an axe. So Mom goes, oh, well, you know, she knows that actually that's not a big deal. But she goes, well, you shouldn't do things like that. That was it. So Mom leaves me probably the next day with Chris and Tom. And we're out there, and I'm swinging on the swing, and the two of them start being mean to me. They're teasing me and saying mean things. Well, you know what I know? I know that I told on you about Mom. Mom knows about you throwing Mr. Index tree. And I proceeded to tell them that I had told Mom about it. Turns out they don't like snitches. So they proceeded to take turns holding me and spanking me. And Mom wasn't there to get me out of this. They're just beating the daylights out of me.
It wasn't enough.
Don't blink it.
And every time I tell that story, Chris goes, you shouldn't have been telling. Oh yeah, that's just one of many stories, Mom. Many stories.
It's a good thing you're the favorite.
I should have been. Like the time when Dad and I sold the milk cow. Okay, those of you guys who don't know this ongoing joke, Chris and Tom grew up, we had a milk cow. He had to milk it every time.
We had 2 milk cows.
He had to go get it at night. He brought it up to the milk cow pasture and he milked it.
If you didn't ride it first.
True. He brought it up, and the milk cow was pretty good at always knowing to follow right up the road. Danny will remember this, except 1 out of 10 times when it decided to make a run for it, and you had to go chase it all over the hills and bring it back in. But they milked all the way. Well, I would go and milk as a little kid, and these guys are so much older than me. By the time I'm 6 years old, they're off to college, and so I'm out there, a little 6-year-old kid. What old are you?
What old are you?
What old are you?
6. So this little boy, imagine this little boy going out to milk a cow.
Yeah.
You have to take
But
the
he
cow
looks
out.
innocent.
You take out there and you put the cow in. And you have to brush it off. You got your stool. You sit the stool down. You have to be careful. Just about then, the milk cow is sitting there and it decides. Well, one, it's got this tail. It's like a whip. You remember this, Danny? Because Danny'd help, and that tail just comes out, slaps you in the face, and it's not just getting slapped. It's slapped things that those manure all over the face. So now you got that slapping, and the stuff goes in, and you're milking, and you get to see pieces of manure going into milk, and you go in, and Mom takes it, and she's got this cheesecloth, and she puts it over a piece of cloth, and it's like strains it, and I'm going, I don't think that really cleans everything out. It just seems to me like that there's more things in the milk than just, maybe any hard bits, but it's got to dissolve. I'm 6, but I'm not stupid. Now, Chris and Tom, they were fine with that. They seem to think chocolate milk is a good idea. I didn't see chocolate milk as that great, so I would be handed the glass of milk, so it would come over, and they'd hand it to you, and all I could see is just see cow manure in there. It's like, I'm just gagging. And so, I would try, they said if you hold your nose, you could drink. And I would go through this. Well, Mom was just beside herself because I wouldn't drink the milk. So finally, she says, Denzel, if we're going to have any milk to drink, we're going to have to just start buying store-bought milk. He won't drink it.
We'll just get soy milk.
They didn't have it. That would have been it. So they finally, Dad, and he hated to do it, but he went ahead and sold it, and we'd have store-bought milk. Well, Chris and Tom, they seemed to think I got it easy because suddenly we didn't have to milk a cow every morning at 5:30 in the morning. I got to sleep in until I went to school. And they felt like that I didn't get the same experience because, you know, I suddenly drank milk that wasn't chocolate.
So now just let me tell you.
I like it.
You are deserving this, Mom.
I know.
Okay, we went in the best old days, we went down on the farm, and we had to milk 10 cows every morning before we went to school. And there was nothing like what he's talking about. We had perfectly good milk. We'd separate the milk in the separator, and you had rich cream, and you could have cream in your coffee, and you could make cottage cheese, and there was nothing like that. So
So you changed the way you did it when I was. So it was fine for you guys to have the good system, but then when I come along, it suddenly won't be different.
I just made up a story.
No, I did not. I know what I saw go in that milk.
I milked cows all those years, and that isn't how it is. That's how it is.
I have been in the same barn that my brothers were in, and I watched them do it. It was the same milk.
Well, that isn't how we milked cows.
The thing that the comment I'd have is I know that there were times when you had something in there and you quickly got it out so you didn't have anything and
Well, no, you cleaned off their udders before you ever
Yeah.
started milking. You didn't just.
And
If
the-
a
and
fly
the
went in,
tail
you
and
never
all
reached
those
in with your hand and pulled the fly out, did you?
oh yeah.
Oh. That's my case.
That's that same hand that moved the tail out of the way.
That's the same hand that kind of brushed everything away. But I'm sure it cleaned it. He probably took out some of the alcohol stuff that I did. They kept that right.
From the dollar store.
You always use the brush to brush, not your hand.
And then too bad, three little boys, one little boy, had to milk 2 cows. Now,
No, there was just one cow. Mom, there wasn't 2 cows when I was there. I only had one cow. They had 2. I just had 1. It was,
So you had it easy.
I'm sure it's too bad.
Tell-
Had to milk
Mom,
one cow.
tell what it was. This is the truth. When she was growing up, tell about your first house when you guys moved to Pritchett. She was describing it to me the other day.
We lived in a shack.
And explain what you mean by a shack.
It had cracks in it. It had centipedes in it. It had kind of wallpaper, not wallpaper, but
Carpet.
carpet. And Dad would hear the centipedes crawling in the wall. So he'd get up and kind of sit in it, kill the centipede. In the wintertime, when the blizzards came and there was these cracks, the snow would come in. We had 3 girls, and so we all slept in the same bed. And you had as much cover as you could because you didn't have heat. You didn't have any gun heat. And so when one would want to turn over, we'd all turn over. When the other would turn over, we'd all turn over.
So you sisters were close.
When we first moved there, there's bed bugs. Now you hear about bed bugs? Okay. I think Mom must have killed the bed bugs with gasoline because she didn't have anything to kill them. So I don't even like to hear the word in the papers about bed bugs, and I guess they're getting very prevalent all over and being brought in from other countries or something.
Tell them about, okay, you guys have heard of the Dust Bowl, right? You guys don't. Okay, the Dust Bowl was this time in the 30s when the farmers, Connie's given me this great book that I've been reading that's based on it. And I'd heard these stories, but it's just amazing. And what these farmers did was they were growing wheat. And the preacher today didn't really give justice to what was happening in Baca County. Baca County, the main cash crop during Prohibition was corn alcohol. That's what the farmers, they were making $500 a week selling it. And then they would take it, it was shipped all over to Chicago and Kansas City and all these places, Denver, so that they could have illegal whiskey or whatever you want to call it. So that was the main, that's why Grandpa Kenyon ended up becoming this big time sheriff. I never understood until reading this book. It was kind of like, duh, this really was the Wild West. It was crazy. But anyway, the farmers, the prices kept going down, so they kept plowing more land. And then this drought hit. And all of a sudden, the wind started, and all this, nothing was growing, so it was just dirt. It just starts blowing and blowing and blowing. And so, describe what it was like when you'd have those windstorms.
But June and I run work to school, about 3 miles to Roman school.
June is Danny's mother.
That's his mother. And the dirt, the things so bad you can hardly see the bar. It's one day, of course, I didn't get to ride the saddle, I had to ride behind because I was
See, that's what happens when you're younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one
You were hard done to with your store-bought milk.
By the way, the night before Grandpa died, Chris and Teresa, maybe Tom was in there, and they were laughing, asking what the Grandpa did when Dad and I sold that milk cow and split the money, what we did with the money. It's been an ongoing joke for years, and he just smiled so big.
And then there was, let's see, it's not related to in here, but anyway, down below us about there was a family, and they had the most boys you ever heard of. I mean, they had a whole lot of boys. And these boys would walk to school. Now we had a horse, but they had so many, they didn't have a lot of horses. And so they'd walk all the way to school. They just harassed us all the time. They just harassed us. So one day I said, I'm going to tell my dad on you because he's on the school board.
Ouch.
Didn't have any.
Turns out school board doesn't have as much weight as you might think.
Now, on one, then we moved later to another place 7 miles east, and it didn't have big boats, and it didn't have rats. We didn't have indoor plumbing.